Remuzzi. Welcome to the Adventure Podcast by BidX. I'm your host today, Joie Roberts. Today is going to be amazing because we have the founder of CapForge. That's Matt. He is the go-to expert for bookkeeping, accounting, and financial strategies that help e-commerce sellers maximize profit and scale with confidence. Y'all, this is the most important part of your business. So I can't wait to unpack the insights on how Amazon sellers can take control of their numbers and build a business that can thrive for years to come. So Matt, welcome to the podcast.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Let's dive into biggest mistakes Amazon sellers make, because I'm an Amazon seller and I know plenty of mistakes I made my first years of getting to seven figures. So what are you seeing?
Yeah, it's interesting. We talk to sellers of all different sizes, and even some of the biggest sellers. I mean, people doing seven figures, even 8-figure sellers, if you can believe it, have admitted to me somewhat sort of on the down low without wanting anyone else to hear them. Like, yeah, we don't really have bookkeeping, or we kind of just keep it in an Excel sheet. And it's surprising, but not surprising, because I've heard it so many times and I get it, right? They're idea people. They found a gap in the market. They found some cool products. They, maybe are really good at branding and knowing their customer avatar, like all the things that you also have to do to be able to have a really successful business. But they're like, I'm not a numbers person. Like, I know if I buy it for this much and I sell it for that much, there should be enough left over. Yeah, generally right. But as you get into even a 6-figure business, right? A 1 or 2% mistake, you're starting to talk about real numbers, right? A 2% mistake in a $500,000 business, that's 10 grand, right? There's not a lot of other worlds where you go, 10 grand, whatever, take it, leave it. It's there. I lost it. No big deal. Right. But somehow e-commerce has this, sort of seat of the pants feel for a lot of sellers, and they don't realize how much those 1 and 2% issues really add up. So that's what we try to do, is help them get a good handle on that, even if they're not numbers people. And I don't expect anyone to go out there and go like, okay, I'm going to go learn accounting to be able to run this business. No. You don't have to do that. But if I can take all those numbers and break it down for you, make it simple, show you just the high level ones, you're going to run your business so much better. You're going to see where things are slipping through the cracks, where because of this, that, and the other, you could have been a 20% profit and now you're only at 12%. And I mean, that's literally just money out of your pocket. So the biggest mistake I see is people running their business and looking at everything but the numbers. They'll spend hours agonizing over the brand. Like, is that the right orange? We'll try a little, I'm like, oh, okay, but what about this $400,000 just, went out the side door you missed? Right. So you got to spend a little time on that too. And really that's at the end of the day, right? We do this to make money, to be profitable. And I know accounting is not sexy, but profits are sexy, right? Profits are what we're here for. So let's make sure we're not letting any of it slip by us, go out unattended, leaving money on the table in various ways. So just spend a little bit of time keeping an eye on this. And I promise you, it's going to pay off tenfold.
It's a good point, is keeping an eye on it. And you just started off with saying, the fun things. You created a really nice product. You have a great brand. You're into the colors. And then now you're a business owner. And e-commerce and Amazon selling is extremely tricky. And they don't tell you this when you're like, hey, I'm going to sell products online, because especially for my business, the costs fluctuate. Like what I'm purchasing from my supplier, it fluctuates. And for me, I can get stuff in the US, I can get stuff in China, I can buy it in Mexico, and I pile it all in. And let's talk about like what method you apply, but I struggled with that. And then I'm putting it on spreadsheets. Like, oh, I think I bought this from that. And when you buy from Alibaba, they don't really give you this beautiful itemized, order thing. Sometimes I'm like, I don't even think that's what I ordered, but I'm giving you a bunch of money for.
Right. And when you start out, everybody starts out with sort of the best case scenario, right? I buy something for $5. and I'm going to sell it for 25. And there should be plenty of room in there to make money. But really what happens is you order 1,000 and yeah, they're $5 a piece, but then there's shipping, right? And then there's all the other stuff that goes with that. And then you ordered 1,000, but by the time it gets to the 3PL, maybe there's only 982 of them. And then you send it to Amazon and they lose another 15, and then you sell them and then you get returns. And some of the returns are just unresellable, right? They're just damaged or stained or what, depends what your product is, or just gone. And so out of that original math where you're like, okay, I'll buy 1,000 at $5 a piece. By the time you actually sell them and get the money for the ones that actually made it all the way to the end, got sold and didn't get returned, it's normal. And then you count shipping and everything else, it's more like $12 a piece. And you're like, well, oh my gosh. And then, I spend all that money on marketing and all the money on Amazon fees. And at the end of the day, I made 27 cents on the thing that I sold for $25. And if you're not keeping track of that and knowing that what your real costs are, you can be fooled into thinking things are going great because you're seeing your sales go up and you're like, oh, for some reason, I don't have any cash. But that's okay. I'll get some credit cards. I'll get an Amazon loan and I'll just keep going because I know this thing is great. Not realizing how much has leaked out in all those sort of assumptions and missed expenses and unaccounted for, extra costs. And that's why having your data and your numbers is so critical. So you're really staying on top of that. And especially as you grow and you add more and more SKUs, right? You might have started with a couple of hero SKUs, did really well, good money, right? But then you add some more and those don't do as well and they take longer to sell and they cost more than you thought or whatever. And that sucks up all the profit that you were making from the ones that were doing. So it's really a numbers business. And again, I get it. People are like, oh, I'm not a numbers person, but I think when they hear that, they're thinking like, well, I remember I didn't like math in high school, like trigonometry and calculus. Like, I don't want any of that. But I promise you, accounting, if you made it past second grade, you have all the math you need for accounting. It's addition and subtraction, and occasionally we'll multiply stuff, but that's it. So you really don't have to be a math whiz. You just have to take enough time to get your numbers right, have somebody do it if you don't feel comfortable doing it, and then take a look at them and compare. Is this month better than last month? The same as last month? Worse than last month? What's happening? And that will really help your decision making instead of just kind of going seat of your pants. Or again, like look at the bank balance. Okay, there's money in the bank. Must be doing well. It really is. It's not hard. It doesn't take that long, but it's a critical piece.
I agree. And I'm one of those people who used to say, okay, I'm bad at math. I can't do that. But reality is like I can calculate my margin in 2 seconds. So I'm not bad at math. None of us are bad at math. We're just not interested in the accounting. And it can be a little painful. Let's be real. It's hard to look at your numbers and you have so much like emotional attachment when it's your product and your business. And then little mistakes. Speaking from experience, I ran out of stock for like 5 days. And that cost me, I don't know, like $80,000 when I had to take a hard look at it.
Yeah.
So there's that pain point too. And what do you say when sellers just don't want to do it? It's like, when do you hire the bookkeeper? Is it from the beginning? Do you need to hit a specific number?
I mean, I usually tell people until you get to about 10,000 a month in sales, right? Spend your money and your focus and your time on getting that going, right? Because you don't need a bookkeeper. You're doing $500 a month. Like it doesn't make sense, right? But you get to 10,000 a month in sales. That probably means, you're doing it at least a decent daily volume. You're on track. There's potential there. You could grow it from there. And at that point, it's already big enough that, you're going to have over 6 figures in sales for the year. That's not a number you want to mess around. Oh, I just won't bother with taxes this year. No, 6 figures. I mean, that's a pretty decent salary in any other job, even though you're not keeping most of that, but it's enough money that it's time to pay attention, right? It's time to get real. You got to, you're a business owner. You got to put your big boy pants on and say, okay, I'm going to be responsible for this now. Because that's, again, where people get themselves in trouble. I'll put 10 grand on this credit card, 10 grand on that credit card. And if things don't work out and all of a sudden you got to pay back $25,000 or $30,000 in credit card debt, that's real numbers. That's going to take some time if you don't have your act together. So, and bookkeeping for a company that size, at least with us, you're looking at $150, $200 a month. I mean, it's not a huge expense, but it's getting your numbers right so you're not walking off a cliff and making big mistakes. You can get on track, make sure you're staying profitable, and really focus on growth. So, I think that's kind of my number is if you're at 10 grand and above, you better have books together. Yeah. And if you're not comfortable doing it yourself, which is most people, then get some help. And, we'll happily, okay, the numbers are done. It's not just like, oh, here's your report. Good luck. Like, let's get on a call. I'll walk you through it. I'll help you from top to bottom of your P&L, explain what these numbers mean, how to think about them, how to use them to improve the business. I'm not just going to leave you hanging, but it's important to have that.
And Amazon does an okay job of telling you, sales in, sales out. But I learned I had to have everything else like what you're touching on. And I used QuickBooks for the credit card, like what's going in, what's going out, just like my insurance, right? Just all the little expenditures, like beyond just my inventory. Like, there's a lot of things I spend money on that is easy to be like, oh, okay, well, that's just $100 a month. Don't worry about it. But you're right. When you're running, like just passing the 6-figure mark and you want to grow, you might think my business is failing, and it's not. You just need to trim some things.
Right. Yeah. I mean, Amazon, and even, there's software like Sellerboard, right? Someone says, oh, I've got Sellerboard, I'm set. Well, that's still missing a lot of what's happening, right? Yes, the sales in, sales out, Amazon fees, ad spend even, it'll give you a pretty good idea of that. But when it comes to real accounting and tax time and everything, there's all kinds of stuff. It doesn't, it's not giving you credit for your home office expense or utilities, or if you're traveling, you're using meals, using your cell phone, or even having a VA in the Philippines or whatever, all those software subscriptions, all that stuff. One is real money that's going out that, is not on those softwares. Helps you at tax time to make sure that you're paying the minimal, or even, a lot of our clients end up paying no taxes, even with 7-figure businesses, as long as you do it right. But also really knowing where your business is at. And if down the road you decide you want to sell it, the only way you're going to be able to sell it for at least top dollar is if you have those good books and records to show how the business was doing, your profitability, growth over time. And what a lot of people I think don't realize is a lot of the value in an Amazon business or an e-commerce business in general is locked up in the business itself. And when you get to realize it is when you actually sell it. That's where a lot of the times people are like, I didn't take a dime out of my business for 4 years and then I sold it, and I sold it for 1.5 million. But that's like literally the first time I got paid. Everything else was just reinvesting in the business. But you're not going to get a big exit like that if you don't have the financials to back up everything that went into that business.
Good point. And when I went to sell my first Amazon brand, the only questions the buyers asked me were, I need to see the P&L and all about money. They did not care about how the product worked, how I made it, where it came from, how many wonderful employees I had, and what branding. They wanted to know the numbers and what happened in June when I was out of stock, and why was I out of stock at Christmas. Like, that's all they cared about.
Exactly. The buyers are 100% focused on the financial performance of the business. They're going to go, well, I wasn't going to buy it, but your logo is so cool with that orange that you picked. Oh, I love it so much. No, they're like, I don't care. Numbers, numbers, numbers. That's what they want. And you have to be able to show what you've done and have numbers that are accurate and reliable, because they're going to go tear into them. They're going to go try to take it apart and say, well, how did you get this number? How did you get that number? And if you're like, I don't know, that's not going to help you. It's not going to get it sold, or they're immediately going to start cutting numbers off the price that they started at, and it's going to go down, not up. So you want to be able to have everything complete, accurate, totally dialed in and ready to go. And then if you've got a good business, selling well, being profitable, there's always people that want to buy that kind of business. But yes, they are focused on how much have you made lately, and I don't really care about anything else.
Exactly. They don't. And that is where having your books come in. I like your advice on the 10,000. Let's quickly touch on profit versus cash flow. Just kind of understanding your numbers, because we all e-commerce, all Amazon sellers just throw it around. Okay, that's profit. This is my cash flow. Like, let's break it down.
Yeah. So profit is the number that you have left when you take income, your sales, and you subtract your expenses. So let's say, this month you had $5,000 in sales, and the products that you sold to generate that cost you $2,000, right? And then there was nothing else going on. So that your profit is the income minus the cost of the products you sold. That's your profit. But the cash flow for that month, you might be out an extra 20 grand, because that's the month that you sent in a payment for a container load of products, right? And those are in transit. They're still, in the warehouse or whatever. So even though you had a profitable month for the products you sold, you might be bleeding cash, or, your bank balance might be down to nickels and dimes because you spent a ton of money to buy more product that you can turn around and sell. So it's two different things. You want to be profitable, because if at the end of the day, after you've sold your product, there's no cash left, you're going to have a problem, right? Yeah. You're churning all this activity, but you're either having to put more money in just to continue selling, or you're kind of just at zero. So you have to have profit. But aside from that, it takes cash to keep in front of that constant depletion of inventory so you can continue to sell and continue to generate profit. And you have to know both numbers, right? One or the other is just not enough, especially if you go, okay, well, I'm kind of out of cash at this point, but I want to buy more inventory. Can I afford to borrow? Well, that interest expense is going to come out of profit. So if you don't have enough profit to cover the interest expense, now you're borrowing to be unprofitable. So it is a numbers business. There's no kind of way around it. You really need to know what your numbers are in order to be able to be successful and grow and make the most of it. And that's why, the most successful businesses that we see in the e-com space are the ones that have healthy profit margins. It is very tough to make it when you're only making a few percent on the products you're selling. You're never getting ahead with cash. You're never able to stockpile and fund growth. And then if you have to borrow, that interest rate eats up all that, that little amount of profit that was there. The interest you're paying to borrow money has just been completely, that's wiped out the rest of your profit. So these are key things to understand about your business. What's your profit? What's your profit margin? And then what are your cash flow needs? And those are two separate things, both important, but two separate things.
Yeah, I like how you said that, because if you want, right? We all want, we're like, my sales are going really well, I should buy 10,000 units. But you're right. You have to look at your numbers and forecast. And you don't want to be borrowing off a credit card or however you're going to borrow, because then the 6%, 18%, whatever it is, cuts into it, and you're not going to be able to make that final payment. And then sometimes the inventory can't get released. And it's the dream, though. I can sell 20,000 units. That's great, but you can't actually afford them because Amazon doesn't pay us all out, right away. Unless you have really good terms. That is like a whole nother podcast. But once you are flowing and, you're at the 7-figure level with your suppliers, you can have net 30, net 60, 90 terms, and that can help your cash flow. But I would say most e-commerce businesses end up with a cash flow problem.
Almost all of them. I mean, the ideal situation is slow, steady growth, right? Because that way you fund new purchases with the profits from the current purchases, and there's a little cash left over. But fast growth is almost worse than slow growth, because you don't have the cash in to fund to keep the inventory in stock to support that fast growth. Or sometimes people come and go, oh, great news. We had a great conversation with Costco and they want us to be in 3,000 locations next month. I'm like, well, how are you going to, like, oh, I didn't think of that.
Yeah. For that? Yeah.
So it is definitely, again, it's a numbers business. You need to know your numbers. You need to be able to know the maximum amount of growth you can support just from cash flow. And then if you decide to exceed that with borrowing, know that your profits will support the cost of that borrowing and still leave you something at the end. And again, if you've got a high margin product, then great. But the more your product is just sort of mid-level or low margin, the harder it becomes to really be able to, realize fast growth or even steady growth. It just is challenging because it's the kind of business where you're putting all the money out and then waiting to get it back, right? That's why a lot of successful Amazon sellers you see move into training and consulting and agency work, because that's the opposite, right? There you get paid first and then you deliver the product or the service, right? And they're like, oh my God, this is amazing. I don't have to wait 3-6 months to get my money back. I'm getting paid up front. This is like miraculous. So it's a huge shift from being in an inventory business and a logistics business, which is what you're in essentially, where you're fronting more and more money. The more you want to grow, the more you've got to be able to front the cash to do it, until, like you said, you're a big enough buyer that you can go back to those suppliers, the vendors, manufacturers, and say, okay, guys, look, I've sold a ton of your product. I've made you a bunch of money. You got to work with me now. You got to be able to wait for some payment. You got to give me some terms. We got to work together on this, right? I'll keep selling your product and making you money, but you got to work with me. But when you're small, you don't have that leverage. Like if you're ordering at the minimums, right? You put in 2 orders in 6 months. We don't care. But as you get bigger, recognize that now you might have some leverage. Go have those conversations, but you got to get to that point.
Yes, and I like your slow and steady growth is the way to go. And you've done that with CatForge, because you started in around the year 2000 as a consulting business, and then you pivoted into bookkeeping. And here you are. I mean, we're, 2025, so it's almost like 25 years later. That's impressive.
Yes. The first 12 years in business, I pivoted like I was a ballerina. I was spinning. I was doing all kinds of stuff. I was doing, in-person professional consulting. I had software business. I had ad business. I bought a catering business because I'd had a lot of years in the restaurant world. And I thought, oh, that'll be great to run that. I was doing business brokering for a long time, helping buyers and sellers, come together, business owners exit their businesses. And I finally got into bookkeeping because through the brokering experience, I would just keep going to business owner after business owner and say, okay, let's figure out how much your business is worth. Let's look at the books. And they were like, oh, the books. Oh yeah, they're 6 months out of date. Or, my wife's cousin does it. I know she's terrible, but how do I get rid of her? It's my wife's cousin. And, there was always a story. And like, okay, there's got to be an opportunity here to do a better job with accounting. Again, from my restaurant background, we were, in the restaurant business, you're all about customer service, right? Let's get people excited to be here and really, impress them with how good we are with what we can deliver. And the accounting world's the opposite. It's like, I'll call you back in 3 weeks if I feel like it. Like, oh my God, that's right. Customer service. What? Yeah. So I thought, okay, we can do a much better job with that. We can be an accounting firm that cares about customers, that does, nice fixed flat rate pricing so you know what to expect. We'll have 24-hour turnaround time on customer response. And most of the time it's, same day, within a couple of hours, you'll hear back from us, but never more than 24 hours. And we really want to, work with our customers to help them understand we're delivering this product of, here's your profit and loss, here's your balance sheet. But we want to deliver more than that. We want to help you understand and really get comfortable with what we're doing for you. And with that formula, I went from, working just by myself out of the spare bedroom to now we have over 90 employees. We've got clients in all 50 states, employees in about 15 states at this point. So it really has been something that business owners wanted to be able to get. and they just needed somebody to come and deliver it. So it's been a great ride.
That's awesome. Well, congrats on the success. And
Thank
it's
you.
always nice to chat with business owners who understand the growth process and the passion and just what goes into any type of business you're building. Amazon business, Amazon ads, bookkeeping, all of it. So yeah, thank you for what you're doing for the Amazon industry. And I like how you started off with like, bookkeeping is not sexy, but it is the most important part of your business. And I learned that the hard way. So I always want to have these conversations as refreshers to,
Yes.
I need to dig into my books better.
Yes. And most people, when we sit down and kind of educate them, okay, this is what this means. This is how you can think about it. This is how you can use it to kind of, they're like, oh, that's okay. I always sort of thought like, this was, again, it's like reading the dictionary. Like, who wants to do that? But okay, I see how this is connected. I see what this is telling me. I can see how if I make these moves, these things improve. And oh, okay, this is way more interesting than I realized before. I was always kind of scared of it, / didn't care. And now you've made it much more relatable and interesting, and I get it, and I'm not scared of it, and I'm excited to see the next month's numbers and see how we're doing. And like, yeah, that's how, I want you to feel. I want you to feel like this is useful, helpful information, and you've got a stake in it. And it's not just, here's some printout from a spreadsheet. Like, oh, what does that even have to do with me? I'm not interested.
Right.
So it's nice to see people kind of connect with their own numbers and their business on that level and really take an ownership stake in seeing how those numbers come out, how they're produced, how they come out, and how they impact our, the rest of what they're doing with all their time. And that to me, it gives me a huge amount of satisfaction seeing people really connect that way with their own results, because that's what they're spending all that time working for. There it is. There's a tangible, proof of all that hard work you put in. This is how it's rewarding you. And it's nice to be able to see that and understand what you're seeing.
I agree. And sometimes it'll surprise you. You might be doing better in some areas than you thought.
Yes.
Awesome. Well, Matt, how can our listeners get in touch with you?
Yeah, the best way to find out more about us is just to check out the website, capforge.com. It's got, our pricing, our services, lots of information about what we can do for people, lots of free resources. There's blogs and podcasts and all kinds of stuff on there as well for people who are just wanting to learn a little bit more about how to improve their businesses. And ultimately, I'd say just, reach out and connect. The consultation is always free. There's no obligation. There's no hard sell here. It's just like, if you got something we can help you with and we go over it with you and show you what we can do and it makes sense for you, great, let's do it. If now's not the right time, we'll be here when you're ready. But I feel like a lot of people have, after they've talked to us, they're like, wow, I'm really glad I found you. I wish I'd found you a year ago, 6 months ago, whatever. But now that I'm here, this feels good. I'm glad that, we connected. So I encourage people to reach out and see if we can help.
Well, awesome. We will put the link to your site below. And at BidX, we are super thrilled to be a recent partner of yours and get to work on initiatives together. And, Amazon ads plays right into profitability.
100%. It's probably the single biggest cost outside of Amazon fees and the cost of the product itself. That ad spend is a crucial piece of whether or not you're making money or you're just kind of spinning your wheels. So getting that right is, I can't overemphasize how important it is to, again, work with a team that knows how to really get you results on that, because it is easy on your own or working with somebody who doesn't really know what they're doing to just blow basically every dollar you have left on that ad spend. And there's, lots of firms out there that are sort of incentivized the wrong way, right? The more they spend on ads, the more they make, but to your detriment. So you want to work with a partner that it's invested in your success in that and getting you great results at the lowest possible, ad spend. And that's what you guys are great at doing. And, I'm definitely glad that we're working together on this to the betterment of both of our shared clients here.
Yeah, same, because Amazon will just love to take all of our money. So
Yes. They're fine with having you make nothing and them make everything. They have no problem with that.
yeah. Well, Matt, it has been such an honor to have you on, and I look forward to the next time that we get to have an awesome conversation.
Yeah, likewise. Thank you for having me on. I appreciate it.